Hey everybody, GeForce 41 here with another PGA Tour 2K25 course design tutorial video. Actually, it is my very first course design tutorial video on PGA Tour 2K25. Thanks for sticking with me throughout PGA Tour 2K23. Super excited by this new game, and this designer upgrade is fabulous. If you have been designing on this game for some time like I have, there are some unbelievable new tools for you that are going to help you really give your course the look and feel that you want. And you could really change the look and the feel of the grass and the textures and the trees and everything with much more precision and control than you ever have been able to before, with just some stock textures. So let's get right into it. Where are we? This is my Taconic State Park Red. This is the 8th hole. One of my more famous, not that I have any famous holes, but I think this one's right up there, the 8th hole on Taconic State Park Red. It's part 3. This was a World Cup design course back in TGC 19. This was an alternate course, and I subsequently did a Taconic State Park Blue course. So this one I've always loved. I have a 23 version out, and I'm moving it over to 25 using some of these new tools. That's where I'm learning how to use them. I've already used a few of the tools here. As you can see, off to the side, under the surfaces, there's terrain painting and surface weathering. I've used both on this hole. The surface weathering is off to the side for the trees where the pines are. I've used it on the path. I started to redo that path a little. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that light brown streak in the middle, but might touch that up a little. I have a walking path that goes throughout this whole course. And I've used some of the new plant assets. You might have seen some of those. I don't want to spend too much time there. They're new plants and trees and all sorts of things. I'll let you discover that at your own leisure. I put a little bit of the surface weathering around this green. But let me give you a look on what that is, how it works, and how it can help you enhance the look of your course. All right? Let's go over to the first hole. All right, I've already used a little bit of the surface weathering, but again, create surfaces, surface weathering, use the brush. We're going to use the big brush, a hard brush at intensity 100 just to show you what it does. Okay, the X button, and there you go, it burns it out for you basically. Now, that's pretty bright and that looks pretty ugly. What the hell would you ever do that for, Gare? Well, you probably wouldn't in most instances, but if you reverse that, let's go out and use a soft brush and lower it down to 50. Now you see what it does. Should have moved it back a little, but that's fine. Okay, there and there. You can see it's more intense in the middle of the circle, and it disperses out to the sides. Okay, so that's a little more subtle. Well, how could you use this? You can use this to do high traffic areas, right? Low sides of bunkers, in and out paths around the tee box where people are walking. I've always tried to get that lived-in, weathered look, and you can't do it. The only way you can do it is bury some trees, and that takes assets. That takes up meter and memory. This course I did in the autumn theme, and I buried trees all over because it gave you a little bit of a brownish, burned-out look. To me, that looked a little bit more realistic, and I liked the weathering that it did to the course. Well, that's a bit of a pain, so you got to bury the trees, right? And you don't really have any control over it at all. It would sometimes work, sometimes not. It depended on how the terrain was laying. And that drove me crazy. So this is a huge tool because I like to give the courses a realistic look and a kind of lived-in feel. I don't like when courses look computer-generated and computery and too perfect. So this gives a realism to the course that's unbelievable. Well, what else can it do? When you bring this intensity down, it actually does act like a brush. You could brush out the intensity. In other words, now I'm going to go down to 13. Watch this. See how it disperses it a little bit? It's still there, but it basically spread it out. Okay? So you have such control now, and you've got to play around with it to get a feel for it, for the different brushes and the intensity levels, and that's going to depend on your rough texture that you chose, your fairway texture, yes, the fairway. But it's such an unbelievably powerful tool because now you have almost infinite possibilities of how you want to make these things look. And did I say the fairway? Yeah, it works on the fairway too. You ready? You can do it over here. Okay, so you could do things like, all right, I got a path here, but if there's no path, see how I put a little walking path up to the fairway? Right? I'm not going to keep that. That's too dark. I just want to highlight it. But you can see where I've already done that. Now it's subtle, but you could definitely see where people were walking, right? Really subtle stuff. And again, that was like my first pass at at the brush. I might go and smooth it out a little, but you can do a little bit of this and just smooth it out, right? So it's not. So there you go. Interesting, right? But that's a huge, huge upgrade. The other thing you can do is use it on trees. I'm going to show you that in a minute. Let's go over to 13 or 14. Please hold. All right, so we're on 13 here. Whoops, sorry. Okay, we're on the 13th hole. It's par 5, surrounded by water and trees, and we'll talk about the tree line. But in the past, you could not do much other than to put some mulch or whatever it was out there, and you only had 2 or 3 textures to play with, and you had to hide the trees behind bushes and grasses because what happens? See how it looks computer generated. There's no break. The tree just meets the grass in a straight line, and that's ridiculous. Even when you have some roots, that doesn't look great. So I've actually done a little bit of weathering over there. Now you can get rid of all this, right? Get rid of the bush. Get rid of the bush. Get rid of the bush, and you can use the weathering on this whole. You can use that on the whole area, but just to show you what you can do under individual trees. Create surface weathering, brush. You can use the big circle if you really want, but I'm going to show you something kind of cool. Again, this brush I'm down around 25. Right? Because under pine trees are like death to grass. The first is, the shade of the trees usually, but the pines the needles I don't think are friendly to the grass. It's always burnt out, right? So you're going to see something like this. Well, the other thing you could do, use a different brush. I'm going to go over to, you could always use the fuzzy donut or the fuzzy one, but I'm going to use this guy. I don't have a name for it. It's kind of the amoeba. I don't know what the hell this thing is. But this one, if you go around 25, same thing, kind of swirl it around, it spreads it out a little. Look how subtle that is. You can barely tell there, but okay. So you can jack up the intensity. See what I mean? It's a lot softer. I think you got to play with it and get your intensity. For this, maybe, I'm going to say 32, whatever. There you go. Now that looks pretty good, right? So it's simple. It's not too stark. You can go all around it. And that's starting to look pretty realistic, okay? Just like that. You can do this whole area that way. Or, like you saw on the first hole, sometimes with these heavily wooded areas, there's not much grass growing. It's you kind of have that dirt effect. I think with this area, I might try to put some more trees in and then go with the dirt, but that's where the terrain painting comes in. All right, let's go over to hole 11, actually. I'm going to work on this area. I'm going to create surface, terrain painting, and I'm going to use subsoil A, dirt. Now, each one of these does something a little different, and I'll let you play with them, but I just want to show you real quick using subsoil A, dirt. I want to put some dirt in, okay? Those areas under the pines, often in heavily wooded areas, you see kind of basically nothing but the dirt, the soil. You might, in the past, you might have put some pine straw down or mulch or whatever to get that effect. Now you can just basically get the dirt, right? So let's just use the brush real quick to show you what it does. So if I wanted to get this area all dirt, right, because there's so many trees back here. You saw I did this on the first hole. I'm just going to go over this section right here, and you'll see what it does. Again, I'm using 100% intensity. Okay, so now that area, that looks pretty realistic to me, right? That's got that woodsy area with there's no grass growing, and believe me, I know those areas where there's no grass growing because I find my ball in there like all the time. So if you're like me, you're spending a lot of time in these areas, but we'll get up close to it. It's basically just dirt. Now that's intensity is 100. Okay. You've got to pick what works for your course, but we'll bring it down a little. You can spline this in. Okay, I'm gonna go right about, I think right about 50 is what I've been using. And there you go. Let's see what happens with 50. And now these areas off in the trees, that actually is really good. See what I mean? These areas off in the trees, that looks pretty darn good and realistic. And yeah, you had the mulch and the pine straw before, but again, you were limited to those 2 or 3 textures. If you had to use the pine straw, 1, 2, whatever, you've got all sorts of options now because you can change this just like you change the texture on the surface weathering. So you can change this same way, subsoil A texture, okay? You can change it to whatever you want. And you're going to get different looks. Okay, so that one's kind of grayed out, but this one's just perfect. That's exactly the look I'm looking for. And that's gonna, give you so much more leeway because now you don't need to hide those trees with the base of the trees with grass and plants that take up precious meter just to give it that natural feel because it just looked, that looks just kind of artificial the way it hits the grass. Like I never liked it. This looks much more realistic. So that's another great tool. All right, so we're going to put it in action. We are on the 9th hole now. I am going to do some surface weathering. I'm going to use a brush. I'm going to start using the fuzzy donut a little bit and I'm going to bring that. I've been using the hard brush, but the more I'm using it, the more I think this is going to be super cool. Where are people going to kind of be walking? They're going to be, to me, they're going to be walking down the fairway. They're going to either go around and go into the bunker here, something like that, right? And or here, kind of around the fairway that way. Gonna add some there, and then I'm gonna just spread it out a little bit. Now watch this. Bring it down to about 14. Look at that. So it just weathers it just a hair. Spreads out the wealth, so to speak. There you go. I can actually bring a little bit down from the fairway. Put that there, and then just brush it in a little. I mean, now the brushes are really acting like a brush. You really can paint these things on. Look at that. So that, to me, is super cool. It adds just such a little special touch to it. You'll see that I've used that here as a cart path, a pathway walking off the green, walking over 210. Now, I did that a while back. I didn't realize you can smooth it out. Watch this. I'm going to smooth this out a little because that's a little harsh. There you go. How cool is that? Could actually use a little bit more there. Right? So now it's pretty clear where the walking path is. And I'm going to continue, go back to 14. I think I had it. That was going perfect. And just smooth it out ever so slightly. There you go. Okay, so this is a huge upgrade. You could use this on the entire course in the entire fairway. So let's go back to the fairway. You could actually put it, whoops, I want to use 14. Please hold. You could use this over the entire course to really change the color and texture that you want to blend in to the course. And that's obviously a little much. I'm doing this for effect. But you see what I mean? How you can lay it on, paint it, brush it, but giving that little bit of a lived-in look over here gives you a whole different shade to the fairway and your rough. So you've got to really play with your textures and the combinations to get the look that you want. You can change the whole look and feel of the course from the current textures. You got to, you can change. Don't forget both obviously the usual texture that you use for the fairway, right? The 1 through 40, whatever, or 50 that you have, and then you can change the weathering texture. I don't want to keep that, but that's some pretty cool stuff. I don't do streams, so this is kind of my stream of consciousness stream while I'm doing the bunkers. I'm taking advantage of, since this is the red course, some of the new bushes. I took out the old bush that I was using to do. This is kind of, it's not a heathland course because it's in the U.S., but it had a kind of heathland feel to it. The backstory: it was a William Flynn lost course, and it was redesigned and all fictional. But I had these purple bushes. That purple bush that's still there was what I was using for the heath, for the heather. It didn't look great, but it was close as I could get. And what I've decided to do is replace it all. I deleted it all. And if you're new to the designer, you want to delete something, just so you know, you can go to the object, bush, select all, and delete all, right? And you can just get rid of them. Then you'll see the meter jump down, okay? Just if you didn't know that, you're really a beginner. Quick tip for you. All right, go back in. I'm going to lay down some more of these bushes. And then I'm going to show you some of the grasses, okay? Okay, I might add some more bushes later, but if you take a look at the grasses, the first 2 pages are all new. There's a new one at the top of the 3rd page as well. And these are pretty darn cool because what these will do is they will actually adapt in their color as you lay them on the terrain. Now watch what will happen if I went back to that weathering tool. Create surfacing, surface weathering, brush. High density. The grass changed color. Isn't that crazy? So those new grasses will change color. We get one of those. Whoops. So it changes color. Green, and it gets that burnt in look. So what I've been doing is doing a little bit of burnout around the bunkering as well. So it's up to you how much you actually do. So the surface weathering is what I mean by the burnout. For this, if you want to get it to change color, you probably want the harder brush. But I'm going to go with about 29 or 30 here. Okay, you see how that changes? Pretty stuff, right? Now, does that really blend with the red? I don't know. I got to make a decision on how I really want this to look. I'm not sure it does, but there's that option for you, okay? A lot of what I've done is a combination of this and these. I'll show you these other really cool grasses. These are very interesting as well. Right, so they come on. I've been using these. I kind of like that golden color on this course. I'll just throw these in there. I probably wouldn't have done it this way, but for speed of the video, I kind of like how that orange blends with the red. And let's see if the weathering has a positive or negative effect here. So that's kind of cool. So I like the fact that it gets more uniform orange than starts with the green. So the green kind of disperses and the orange gets a little bit more consistent. that might be a better look for these. What do you think? Cool stuff? All right. So the other thing I've done is update my path. I had a walking path go through the whole thing. So the goal here is this is a state park and there's a walking path going around the whole park. And you can actually walk through the golf course as well. Would you want to do that with golf balls flying around your head? I don't really know, but I was just looking for something to kind of break things up. I hate the cart paths themselves and using the cart paths. I'm usually doing a course that would not lend itself to cart paths. So I thought this was an interesting way to break up the course and the scenery. And I used the mulch and the pine straw. I forget exactly which ones. And I've left one of those textures in the middle, thinking of getting rid of it. But we'll see how it goes. But that's what that is. That's a walking path that I'm going to keep in there from the original version. But what I did is I used the subsoil A. So that second, the thick band of dirt around it create surfaces, not surface weathering, terrain painting, subsoil A, dirt, and I've just kind of gone around it. All right, so I'm going to start touching this up now that I figured out these tools even more myself. You can see I've already done some of this planting and this work, and hopefully this one will be ready to go in a week or two. But hopefully those are quick, helpful tips to get you thinking about using that designer and the ways you can be creative, because the possibilities just multiplied by a whole you-know-what load for all you designers out there. So have fun with it. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll talk to you real soon.